Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, suspends 3-month-old industrial action.
Adamawa State Council of Emirs and Chiefs describes the next level movement as most critical pathway towards greater future for Nigeria.
And all is now set for the general elections as INEC security agencies, election observers and political parties meet in Abuja.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on tackling corruption in election financing.
All right, now barely a week to the presidential election, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the EFCC, has raised concerns over the inflow of illicit funds into the country to allegedly corrupt the electoral system by some politicians.
Well, yes, Claire, now, those are pretty grave allegations. The anti-graft agency alleges further that the illicit funds were earlier invested in property abroad but have now found their way into the country for purposes of vote buying and also tainting the electoral process.
All right, Kingsley, I guess we do not have much to worry about, as the EFCC is saying that it is monitoring and also tracking movement of those funds within the electoral system.
Well, if you remember, Claire, last year the acting chair of the EFCC had said, we are working with INEC to make sure that we seal every window, every leakage before the elections. We'll block any avenue where people can move a lot of money, either physically in raw cash or through banks.
Of course, very reassuring words coming there. But the question to ask will be, how are they going to do that? Now, do they intend deploying forensic experts or equipment to monitor how these, of course, funds come in and how they are spent? Kingsley?
Well, that's a very good question you have raised. The fact is that some of the politicians who have allegedly carried out these activities of bringing in illicit funds have done so by proxy. And the case in point, of course, is the alleged widespread inflow of cash during the elections for the governorship in Ekiti and Osun states, what was done better known as the see and buy phenomenon.
Indeed, Kingsley. I'm sure everybody remembers the see and buy, of course, in quote, in Ekiti and Osun. But the interesting thing is that INEC has called on the EFCC. It said that it has, it is collaborating with the EFCC to work with them to track sources of funding political campaigns within the limits of the law.
And of course, the Electoral Act is pretty clear that a presidential candidate shall not expend more than 1 billion naira on election campaigns.
Well, Kingsley, of course, there are also other cappings, for the governorship and those running for House of Representatives and State House of Assembly. But really, all over the world, Kingsley, I'm sure that it's a known fact that you need lots of money to, run political campaigns, if not the trailer loads.
Not necessarily, not necessarily, depending on the environment where you are. But what is also critical is that there is a cap on campaign financing, and the jurisprudence of campaign financing is often one that is fluid in many jurisdictions. So you keep extending it. Who can donate for a political cause, or more particularly, who can donate to a candidate for an election? Is it an individual, a corporate organization, or otherwise? And if so, how much can you donate? And under what rule or under what provisions of the law or the Constitution will you be donating? In some jurisdictions, they will say first. Say in the U.S., for instance, that it's part of the so-called, what they call the First Amendment rights.
Now, if you consider the whole gamut of what needs to be done, I mean, for every elective post, you must, for parties, you must have widespread, representation. You must have your secretariats at the local or national or whatever, state government. You must also have the logistics, the adverts and all that. Do you think that the cappings, I mean, that's one question that we'll be asking anyway, is still realistic?
Well, that's the point that I believe probably will be beyond our conversation this morning. A reason being that the mischief that is intended to be attacked or cured by capping campaign expenses is to create a situation whereby there is, if you like, a level playing field for the application of legitimate funds. Otherwise, all kinds of, again, rogue elements, can pump in money. They could be drug dealers. They could be persons with intentions, over and beyond that which ordinary citizens would like to see in the electoral process. And this could lead to what is referred to in some places as state capture.
Anyway, you and I know that over the years, that capping, political parties have gone beyond the capping. But these are some of the issues we intend to, of course, take up on today's edition of the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We're broadcasting live from Abuja. And, of course, it's reaching you from Africa's largest TV network. Any way you look at it, we have the widest reach, the NTA. I am Claire Adelabo Abdurazak. I was going to say I'm Kingsley.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Claire in thanking you for joining us for today's edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our newspaper review, business, sports, entertainment, and, of course, foreign news. In the meantime, let's take the news highlights with Comfort Amodu. Hi, Comfort.
Good to see you, Kingsley and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. And here's the morning news. Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has suspended its 3-month-old industrial action with effect from today. ASU and federal government have trashed out all the 8 contending issues that led to the shutdown that started on the November 1st, 2018.
Following a careful review of the report of engagements with the federal government on proposals for addressing all outstanding issues in the 2013 MOU and 2017 MOA, NEC resolved that the current strike action by the union should be suspended conditionally with effect from 12:01 a.m. on Friday, 8 February 2019.
President Muhammadu Buhari says the only way to guarantee his re-election in the February 16 polls is for citizens to come out en masse to vote for the APC and protect their vote until results are announced. The president re-emphasized this during the APC presidential campaign in Taraba State.
There is nothing I want to say that the previous speakers have not said, but the most important is the construction of the dam here in Taraba State, the Mambila hydroelectric dam, and the ongoing road construction. Then the issue of power is also important to enable small businesses thrive.
The Adamawa State Council of Emirs and Chiefs has described the next-level movement being championed by President Muhammadu Buhari as the most critical pathway towards sustaining the growth and development of Nigeria for greater future. Chairman of the Council and Lamido of Adamawa, Dr. Muhammadu Barkindo Aliyu Mustafa, stated this while formally endorsing the second-term bid of the president, who paid homage on the council members. And President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed profound sadness over loss of lives at the All Progressives Congress APC presidential campaign rally in Jalingo, Taraba State on Thursday, reacting to reports of the tragic death of some APC supporters due to the overwhelming crowd at the Jolly Nyame Stadium. The president said, "I always feel very sad and distressed when ordinary Nigerians who love me and our party because of what we stand for and have done make personal sacrifices by taking the pains to show their support and their lives tragically." While appreciating the massive support he is receiving all over the country, President Buhari calls for restraint on the part of his supporters to avoid such tragic incidents and improve crowd management at rally grounds. The president says he wants his supporters to stay alive and witness the dividends of purposeful governance that the APC administration will unfold when they renew his mandate. Commiserating with the families of the victims and the APC family, the president prays Almighty God to grant peace to the souls of the departed and speedy recovery to the injured. Now, Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyama has asked the people of Enugu State to ignore all propaganda against President Muhammadu Buhari and come out to vote for him on February 16th. At the continuation of the local government campaign mobilization tour for the president and APC in Enugu State, the minister assured them that the president means well for Nigeria.
We owe it to our children, our grandchildren, and children yet unborn that we do the right thing on February 16th, vote for President Muhammadu Buhari, and I promise you all shall be well with Nigeria.
Now, all is set for the general elections with INEC, security agencies, election observers and political parties meeting in Abuja to seal all aspects of the process.
They are observers. They are not monitors of our election.
International observers and the EU in particular wish to stress our impartiality. We are here to support no particular candidate, but to support a democratic process.
I want to reassure each and every Nigerian that you will be allowed to exercise your civic responsibilities in an atmosphere devoid of intimidation or inhibition.
And observers in the forthcoming general election have been tasked to make observations that will add value to the electoral integrity in Nigeria. Former INEC chairman Professor Tahiru Jega gave the advice at an election observation sensitization workshop organized by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies in Abuja. And politicians have been implored to be more interested in the development of Nigeria and Nigerians rather than the desperation to occupy elective offices. Former President Goodluck Jonathan and former head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar gave the advice at a peace conference organized by the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation in Abuja.
This gentleman called Goodluck Ebele Jonathan kept his word that his presidency is not worth the blood of any Nigerian.
For a nation to develop, conflicts must be minimized. And we charge our political leaders to be more interested in how we improve the quality of life of our people.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And time now to talk a bit of business news. And the federal government plans on improving procurement process in ministries, departments and agencies. Chimobi, Walt and Naji will tell us more about this.
In an effort to help government cut costs and improve savings in ministries, departments and agencies, the Ministry of Finance, through the Efficiency Unit, is partnering the Bureau for Public Procurement, BPP, to make obtaining off-the-shelf items ICT-based for a seamless procurement process across the country. The price checker and e-procurement is in line with the rules of public procurement and targets to eliminate barriers to service delivery in MDAs and improve the budgetary process.
Reports in the past where different MDAs are procuring the same item at different prices or budgeting for the same items at different prices. So with this, it brings the market to the MDAs and also enables the vendors who government patronizes for such items, non-customized items or off-the-shelf items, to go on the platform and state their products and their prices.
From what we were informed, the study revealed a serious disparity, and in order to arrest that, the price checker system was brought in. So it's to bring more transparency and to bring the market closer to the people.
It is also open to all states and local governments as well as vendors compliant to the rules guiding public procurement in the country. Here is a graphic representation of trading figures on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Chimubi Walter Naji.
Thank you very much, Chimubi Walter Naji, for the business package. Next for us now, we'll take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
All right, welcome back. And Bayo Toyebi is right here with us. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Claire.
It's Friday.
Yes, it's Friday. Rest time is coming over the weekend. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, good to see you. All right, Claire, let's begin with you.
Okay, let's take up the front stories from the Nigerian Tribune. And the story making the rounds now is that of ASU. ASU suspends strike. Lecturers resume today. You can find the details of that story on page 2. That's the bold headline on that page. And if we take other stories, you see, let me go there a bit. The picture story there is that of President Muhammadu Buhari acknowledging cheers from supporters during this campaign in Jalingo, Taraba State. That took place on Thursday. Now, of course, again, let me take you to the right column on the screen. That's to my left. You find highlights of agreement with the federal government. That's talking about the ASU suspending strike. Federal government to release 25 billion naira revitalization fund. That's in April, between April and May this year. To also address 2013 MOU, 2017 MOA, and other highlights of the agreements there on the front page. I think there's also the story about the ASU suspending the strike on the front page of this day, but it's tucked in between the, of course, master, that's the nameplate, and the story on top. It says, finally, ASU agrees with FG course of strike. It continues on page 10. I'm sure Kingsley has the same story.
The story on ASU is the second lead on the front page of the Daily Independent, and it's right at the foot of the front page of the paper. It says, at last, ASU suspends strike, gives fresh conditions. The story is on the front page there with a jump inside, even though what I have here is smudged, so I can't see the page to which it jumps. But there are other stories on the front page of the paper. Bayo, let's take this ASU story and then we'll take other headlines.
Well, lecturers under the auspices of the Academic Staff Union are to resume. Is it today or tomorrow now? Because they're calling off at midnight. Yeah, it's midnight today or tomorrow. Well, anyway.
This paper says today.
Good. But the announcement by the ASU president is midnight Friday. So if you are a student in any of the Nigerian universities, please listen out for announcements from your university for you to return quickly to the campus. The Academic Staff Union President, Professor Abiodun Oguyemi, says the strike is suspended conditionally at midnight. And what did ASU gain? Some of the things that were attained from the negotiations was what Claire read earlier on. However, one of the grounds they succeeded was the approval for the license for the National Universities Pension Commission, which has been on the drawball for a long time. With this, we hope that our students will be called back to the campuses and sanity will return. There were concerns expressed by politicians, particularly in independent weeks, about government coming to agreement with ASU. I felt that was altruistic, except that I found that some of them qualified to say many of the students registered on their campuses, so they should let them go back quickly so that they can vote during the elections. I was very worried because they had kept quiet all through, but during this end, they now were concerned about the elections. The future of our youths, particularly if they are actively engaged in the academics, the nation stands to benefit. The political motive seems to have dominated everywhere.
Yeah, it's that's the sad reality that we face with regard to the ASU strike. But you know, the language of the ASU officials is something that should also be worrisome. Each time they suspend each time they call off their strike, they say they are suspending. And then after a while, you watch out. Maybe after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they will, they will issue threats again. And if the government doesn't fulfill its own obligations, then they say, right, fine, we're going back on strike because all we did last time was to suspend it. I think these are some of the issues that will need to be addressed. I mean, once the electioneering season is over, because there are some tough decisions that cannot be taken at this time. No question about that. And also, very, very important, whatever agreements have been reached, you have to ask yourself which one applies to staff of federal universities and which of those agreements apply to state universities. Is the federal government also giving money to the state governments to pay whatever allowances they have or whatever financial implications there are? These are the points, to trash out. And I think that the element of blackmail, as some persons have suggested, also will need to be addressed. We know that our educational system needs revamping. We know that there are financing challenges. There are other issues also pertaining to that. And some lecturers also raise the issue of governance systems in the universities. If you recall, in the 90s, I mean, the university system fell into pretty challenging times, such that the government had to be appointing sole administrators, one of whom was a retired military officer.
Yes, but at ABU.
Yeah, at ABU. Now that, absolutely, deceased now. Now that we have reached this level, what are those issues? What is it that you can do to tackle those issues? Are the governing councils of the respective universities inadequate in terms of their capacity to run the universities? What do you need to do? Again, I mean, some persons would argue, these ones who say that, oh, no tuition in federal universities. Some persons have contended that that is no longer realistic.
There's just one aspect, I don't know, I'd like Bayo to just clear. One of the highlights here is payment of outstanding end academic allowance arrears for all eligible staff in the University of Ilorin. And then there's a especially the loyal ASU members.
Well, because the ASU is intending to punish those who opted out and were not part of the strike. For a long time, University of Ilorin has stand its ground that most of the time it doesn't come out to join ASU when they call off the strike. And because of that, because they were also reacting to ASU, they had a lingering crisis where some of their lecturers were rightly or wrongly put in the situation of a quandary. And many of them died through that time. But they are pained that the national body of the Academic Staff Union did not come to their support. So it's a kind of a hit back at them. So all this while, whenever there's such strike, University of Ilorin does not participate. And ASU is threatening that if you didn't participate, when the dividends of what they struggled for everybody comes, we may not be allowed. Even University of Ife this time around, right. I think also continue with the academic activities.
Yeah, but how are you going to enforce that? You deny a lecturer of his entitlement? Then, I mean, you're going to create another crisis. As you said, I mean, if they are independent centers, if you say because they didn't participate in the strike, they will not enjoy the benefits, are you the person disbursing it? And then we also have to be concerned as to, I'm sure the authorities should also be on the lookout for what happens with regard to the other unions in the university system. Because you find that in some cases, when one union is ending its strike, another one is... So we cannot continue to have this. That's what, but remember, we have all discussed this on this program, and we do hope that going forward. And the issue is not just a matter of the government or the sponsors spending money. There also has to be accounting.
Yes.
There has to be those who are earning these monies or who are enjoying these benefits or who are entitled to these benefits should justify whatever they are earning.
The danger time now is April, because currently the current negotiation have a lifespan up till April.
May. Anyway, whatever had happened, I think the students are now better for it. They can now, resume school and, of course, end the academic session. And some of them are left behind.
Is aware that the nation is bored and weary of strikes.
So please, let's get on. There are other very strong stories. And this day, again, I take on this day's front page. INEC vows not to postpone polls. That's another fallout from the event that held yesterday. Now, there are 3 or 4 couple of riders there may extend PVC collection deadline. NSA, IG pledge adequate security. DHQ reads riot act to personnel, and FRSA deploys 20,000 personnel nationwide. Just quickly above the mark state, Agbakoba sues Buhari, asks court to void Onogen's suspension, and of course, you come down, you see the picture story. SDP adopts Buhari while Duke Ghana kick. All right.
Well, let's return to the Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun, beside the nameplate, says, "Don't set Nigeria on fire. Abdulsalami, Jonathan, and Kuka caution politicians." Details of that story can be found on page 6. Now, below that, 2019, that's the countdown. Nigeria votes 8 days to February 16th. Atiku shakes President's Katsina, promises jobs and security. That's on page 10. And also on page 10, Buhari dares Atiku at home, promises Adamawa and Taraba development. Lead story, PDP APC fight over foreign observers. Opposition party deceiving US, UK, EU. That's according to Governor of Kaduna, El-Rufai. Rigging should attract international sanction. That's according to Wike, Governor of Rivers. Now, right below the photograph there, so the ASU story is there on page 7 in greater detail, but promoted on the front page. INEC mulls extension of PVC's collection deadline. Electoral bodies workers face trial for selling 3,097 voters' cards. And court issues arrest warrant against ex-NIA DG and wife. And court threatens to jail Obanikoro over absence. Details on page 4. Very quickly, Daily Independent. Let's just take this. Let's take the headlines and then go over to bio. Above the nameplate of Daily Independent, scores of children killed as fire raises Mongono IDP camp. That's page 41. 5 feared dead at APC presidential rally in Jalingo. And global terror groups have converged on us, federal government laments. That's page 5. Lead story says millions may not vote as PVC collection ends today. With 4 riders, compromised INEC officials stealing PVCs, PDP alleges. Afenifere, Obaze, Adams, and others seek extension of deadline. We may review collection deadline, according to INEC, and says polls in Rivers and Zamfara won't be postponed. 2019 will be neutral and professional in conduct. That's according to the military, page 5. Don't let your ambitions set nation on fire, Jonathan advises politicians, page 44. And court issues bench warrants against sacked NIA boss and wife, page 44 as well. And judiciary frustrating anti-corruption fight. That's according to President Buhari, also on page 44.
Just another one to add so that you can. It's on the front page of Nigerian Tribune. HND graduates can't rise above level 14. And that's by the federal government. The details of that on page 29.
Well, let's start with the sad note about what happened in Jalingo. Some papers are reporting 2 deaths, another is saying 5 deaths. This occurred during a stampede at the campaign of President Muhammadu Buhari at Jalingo, Taraba State. Both President Muhammadu Buhari and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar have expressed condolences to the families and the people of Taraba State. The President specifically advised that when the ordinary Nigerians who make personal sacrifices for the party dies, it's quite tragic and very painful. He called for proper crowd management. You need to see the mammoth crowd that was at Joli Nyami Stadium in Taraba. It's far beyond the capacity of the stadium. That is why even in football sessions, FIFA is very strict. Don't exceed the capacity meant for the stadium. When it reaches capacity, you shut it up. But when it comes to political campaign, if the stadium has capacity of 20,000, you can find a situation of 40,000 persons cramming into the stadium. That is when you have such unfortunate incident. There's also developments in the media about the strength of the youth participation in this current election. There are 1,515 young Nigerians that will contest for the National Assembly in the 2019 elections. For House of Representatives, it's about 27% of the candidates. For Senate, it is 13%. In comparison terms with 2015, the House of Representatives had 18%. So this time around, there's an increase of about 9%. In the Senate, the last time they had 10% participation, and now it's about 3.4% increase. The interesting thing is that this increase is attributed to the not too young to run law. However, of the 1,904 senatorial candidates, there are only 253 young persons within the age bracket of 30 to 40. For the 4,680 House of Rep candidates, you have 1,262. For the presidential, 72 registered candidates are to contest. There are only 10 of them, which is about 14%. The vice president is better. For the position of the vice president, there are about 12 of them, that is 15%. The number of young female persons, I'm sure this will interest Claire, affirmative action. Sadly, the number is less than 20% that it was in 2015. So while they have brought down the bar for the age, instead of having more women coming in, for the women it is decreasing. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done for affirmative action.
We all saw that, where during the primaries of the parties, you saw that. I mean, that's the forms were pretty exorbitant in some cases, even though some parties look half the price.
Free for the female candidates.
Half the price in some cases.
Some said free.
Some said free, but of course they were muzzled out in the course of the primaries.
We had a lot of women giving their complaints about how they were muzzled out and forced to step down for the male counterpart. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Yes, it's a gradual process. Now let's take. You didn't talk about the HND, the dichotomy between the HND holders and the BSc holders in the civil service.
In the academic circle, they look at the curriculum. They look at the stream of education and the objective of the education. And at the end of the day, the level of remuneration that you are supposed to attain. And what they are saying, therefore, is that for the polytechnics, the education is technically oriented. For the academics, it's a different orientation altogether. The Ministry of Education has its technical experts that have a way of evaluating and awarding certificates based on the curriculum and the output. And that contention has been all. In some instances, they say HND and degree are equivalent, but they are not equal.
All right. Equivalent but not equal. Let's quickly take a look at the editorial taken from the New Telegraph. Again, it raises concern about electoral violence, but it's captioned "No to electoral violence," and the concern is that, or the submission of the editorial is that no effort should be spared to ensure that elections are violence free. Now it goes on to ask that the security agencies, of course, must be put on high alert, and that they must contain the activities of politicians and their supporters who are hell-bent on instigating mayhem during the elections. Bio.
Yes. They place it all on the level of rhetorics at the campaign. The editorial is saying that instead of the politicians happen on the issues, what they are going to do, when they go to political rostrum, they resort to personal attack and making allegations, very wild allegations, rather than convincing Nigerians what the problems are, how they are going to tackle it, and their methodology for solving some of the social problems. Sadly, too, sometimes our colleagues in the media, for purposes of sensationalism, harp on those sensations and those rhetorics. And the danger is that it creates an atmosphere of uncertainty, it heats up the polity, and there is alarm. And that was why even today, for the story that Kingsley read earlier on, former President Goodluck Jonathan at his foundation also raised alarm and concern about the need for peaceful election. General Abdulsalam Abubakar even had to reiterate that in 2015, all over the world, there was alarm that Nigeria was going to go down the precipice. But we were able to, thank Providence, to put it there. And he's still happening on the fact that political leaders must call their followers to order. The presidential candidates are mostly calm and they are coping. But the spokespersons are the one borrowing the mouths of their owners to eat onions, as it's said, this part of the country. And they are saying anything. Sometimes...
So what happens if you borrow somebody's mouth to eat onions?
That is the literal expression here in this part of the country.
I know, yeah. What does it mean?
You borrow his mouth to eat onions and you say whatever you want. On his
Bayo, just before we let you go, there's a cartoon or whatever, just below the New Telegraph. It's also talking about, you see the politician there carrying his millions of naira just at the back, the sack of money at the back. You have politician rating. And you have the electorate, of course, with, obviously the picture says it all. And the politician is saying, your PVC before the money.
He wants to be sure of his investment.
Well, there's been so much talk about politicians purchasing PVCs. Let's see how it plays out. The elections are just 1 week away in terms of commencement. What are they going to use those PVCs for? Is it to deny them the opportunity of voting, or to use it to manipulate? We'll see how it plays out. I mean, I'm not in that game, so it's the reports that we'll get from the field that will determine the tack of analysis.
Addressed it. He said if the intention is to use the PVC to manipulate the system, it will fail, it won't work. Except that if you are using it to deprive your opponent of the chances of those persons voting.
Yes. And they have also, of course, gone ahead with trying to tackle see and buy. But that's part of what we'll be discussing in our conversation segment. Bayo, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your weekend.
Yes.
See you in the week of elections next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, our topic will be tackling corruption in election financing.
And culture.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service. We're starting our conversation right now. Don't forget to join in. You can tweet us at NTAGMN, and please do make your tweets very succinct. Now, let's begin with a backgrounder put together by our correspondent, Victor Azu.
Election seasons all over the world have been known to bring about massive circulation of cash, and Nigeria is no exception. Observers are of the view that there is a correlation between successful political parties and outlay of cash. However, over the years, political analysts have decried the huge amount of money in circulation during elections in Nigeria, in spite of expenditure ceilings imposed by the Electoral Act, Section 91, subsections 2 to 7. According to Section 91, subsection 2, the maximum election expenses to be incurred by candidates at a presidential election shall be 1 billion naira. Subsection 3 says the maximum election expenses to be incurred by candidates at a governorship election shall be 200 million naira. Subsection 4, the maximum amount of election expenses to be incurred in respect of senatorial seats by candidates at an election to the National Assembly shall be 40 million naira, while the seat for House of Representatives shall be 20 million naira. Meanwhile, Section 91, subsection 9 forbids donations in excess of 1 million naira. Experience shows that this has rather been observed in breach. Now, while the listed sums may be grossly inadequate, as reality may suggest, this is still the law. Today, the Nigerian electoral process is bedeviled by vote buying and other forms of corruption which show no sign of abating. Political parties and their candidates are alleged to have not only spent in excess of the prescribed amounts, but have also gone ahead to deploy money for illicit activities like vote buying and arms procurement, among others. What can be done to curb corruption in election financing? This is the focus of our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much, Victor Azu, for that background. Now we have with us in the Abuja studios two guests. First is Silvanus Tahir. He's an Assistant Director Legal at the EFCC, of course, EFCC meaning Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Mr. Tahir, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, sir.
Also here with us in the studios, another legal practitioner, Alhamdu Rufai Sabo. Alhamdu Sabo, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, thank you.
Okay.
All right, and Wahab Shitu is a lecturer, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and leading EFCC prosecutor. He joins us from Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Shitu. Thank you for finding time to join us on the program.
Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, we're glad you could join us. Let's begin by putting this topic into perspective. First of all, I'd like to begin with Mr. Tahir, who is Assistant Director Legal EFCC. Can you give us an insight into the nexus between election, financing and credible polls, and what might constitute as corruption therein?
Yes, thank you for that question. In the preface to the discussion, you had your commentator read portions of the Electoral Act, particularly with respect to the limits set by the law for candidates to finance their elections. The maximum for the presidential aspirants or candidates shouldn't be more than $1 billion, right? Then down the line for governors, 200 million, National Assembly members like a Senate, 40, House of Reps, 20. Then down the line, chairman, state assembly members, 10 million each, councillorship, 1 million, and the rest. Now, it involves money. Elections everywhere in the world involves money. So how EFCC comes into it and how we now put an eye to monitor these things is based on these provisions of the law. And if you look at section 130 of the Electoral Act, it has penalties for those who contravene these provisions of the law, meaning that once there is an infraction or contravention, it becomes a financial crime. So EFCC now had to devise a means in conjunction with INEC, which is a sister government agency, to monitor issues of election spending.
Sorry to interject. How does money in politics, I mean, you've said that
yes,
election involves money.
Yes.
So we'd just like you to give us a background. How does money rub off the credibility in an electoral, cycle?
Well, you see, money plays a very vital role in election campaigns and financing, in the sense that a candidate who puts himself up for election, particularly for a presidential candidate whose constituency is the entire federation, has a lot to spend. Using our country, Nigeria, as an example, there are 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory making 37 constituencies altogether. So without money, there's no how the candidate can have a far-reaching effect to persuade voters, to put logistics on ground, to mobilize his supporters, to mobilize people to key into his vision. So money plays a vital role, not just in Nigeria, nationwide, and I mean worldwide. And if you look at the practice in Nigeria, as against what happens in other developed democracies, in the US, for example, once you are a candidate, you have people that do sponsor, people that contribute their widow's mites, whatever they can. Remember the election of Barack Obama? People who are contributing money. But here, you have godfathers and you have money bags who will seize the opportunity to finance campaigns of politicians. And at the end of the day, they decide for the politicians what to do. You can remember the situation that happened sometime in Anambra State when a governor was held to ransom by some people who purportedly financed his campaigns. And they actually had an ISPO, a standing order for remittances to be made to them. Now, that has the potential of devastating and antagonizing the state. If you allow just one person to finance, that's why to finance the campaigns of anybody, that's why the law sets limits. So to that extent, political party financing and monitoring is very important.
All right, Silvanus Tahir, thank you very much. ISPO, that's irrevocable standing payment order. And part of what you just described now is what is sometimes referred to as state capture. In other words, you have you sponsor a candidate, the guy gets into office, or the gentleman gets into office, and you have a pipeline, for illicit transfers to you. Let's bring in Sabo. This is an open-ended question. Is there the likelihood of corruption in election financing?
Thank you for the question. Most definitely. Most definitely. Just like my good friend here said, if there is some external influence in financing somebody's campaign, And when I say external influence, I mean, like he said, money bags, people who are godfathers, who purportedly said to be godfathers. They tend to determine what happens in that particular state, or in case of presidential elections, they tend to determine what happens in the nation itself. And usually people who invest, because to them it's an investment, people who invest that kind of money are investing for some profit, some benefit to them. The candidate is now left with the problem of having to return the investment to the whoever it was that invested. And that, of course, impacts negatively on the state. Now, there are some other aspects of it. Foreign policies could be influenced. We have seen the drama that has been unfolding in America. Trump and the Russian, whatever system it was that was happening there. The fear, I think, of the Americans was that the Russians might influence what happens in America. So if it happens here, the same thing goes, because you have a situation now where money, like you said, is involved. And when money is involved, it is involved not so much because of the logistics and so on. It's because you want to turn the thinking of people using money as an influence. In other words, more like bribery. You give them money so that they do what they should not do. You give them money to do what you want them to do. Money comes in as a very important factor. There's all levels of corruption when it's money. So it's a very serious matter when money is involved.
All right, let's get to Lagos, and we'd like to bring in the lecturer here who is also leading EFCC prosecutor. Mr. Shuto, I'd like for you to also speak on this issue. Now, if in fulfillment, of what the law requires, I as a friend or someone as a friend or as a corporate body, decides to support, a candidate or a party, and I make some form of donation, I should expect to, get something in return. Now, in doing so, what might constitute as corruption in that action?
Thank you very much. I think for me to be able to answer that question effectively, we need to go back to the definition of corruption itself. Corruption is derived from the Latin verb corruptus, which means a breakdown. So when there's a breakdown in systems, it is corruption. When there's a breakdown in institutions, it is corruption. When there's a breakdown in ethical and moral values of the society, it is corruption. When there is a breakdown in personal behaviors, it is corruption. So when you use the mechanism of money to induce voters to vote for you, or when you use money as a vehicle of vote buying, you are corrupting the foundation of the society. The democracy that we practice envisages that people should be able to exercise their freedom to vote independent of any influence. Like my learned friend Silvanus Tahir said there's no way you can engage in campaigns without committing some level of money for logistics, for mobilization, for transport, and some other issues. But the law has set a limit. And this limit is contained in the Electoral Act, Section 103, and even in the Constitution. As to the amount you can spend, the rationale is that the law expects you not to use money as an inducement to obtain votes. Because when you use money as an inducement to obtain votes, beyond the limits permitted by law, that is corruption. And we need to appreciate what the EFCC is doing in this regard, collaborating with INEC, even beyond our borders, sharing intelligence. The EFCC chairman, Ibrahim Magu, and led EFCC, has been making tremendous efforts to ensure that our elections is not polluted by money. He has undertaken several trips to Dubai. Within ECOWAS, he's been able to sensitize a lot of these countries, including Ghana, to ensure that illicit money, stolen money from by corrupt politicians are not deployed during this election. And it is something that is salutary, because when you see a candidate deploying money to influence voting in his favor, you know that that candidate automatically is corrupt. Because our democracy is not cash and carry. Our democracy is not supposed to be a democracy where for the highest bidder. I, for one, will not encourage any Nigerian voter to vote for any candidate who's using money. Because once you even use money to influence the voting procedure, it shows that you don't have capacity, you don't have competence, and that you are lacking in character. And then you want to use money as a vehicle of influencing the voters. This election must be sanitized, and that is what EFCC is doing, trying to collaborate with even the banks to ensure that some of these illicit funds do not get into the banks and be used and deployed during the elections in order to sabotage not only our economy, but the voting process. The expectation is that we should have a free, fair, peaceful elections, and above all, an election that is credible. And there's no way you can have a free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections if the environment is monetized.
All right. Well, Wahab Shitu, thank you very much. We'll come back to you, but let's be back to our two guests here in the Abuja studios. Silvanus Tahi, we're talking about tackling corruption in election financing. Yes. Now, when you look at the, shall we say, value chain of election, or they say the electioneering process, yes, oftentimes people see the end, where to say, look, on the day of voting, the blatant distribution of money as inducement to voters, the so-called see and buy that was rife in Ekiti, as well as to some extent, the Osun governorship elections. What are we looking at here in terms of the corrupt tendencies in the electioneering process? Is it just the end on the day they are sharing money, or is it the way that a candidate or candidates are seeking to finance either their logistics, their accommodation, mobilization, and so on and so forth? What are the cost centers that could be prone to corruption?
See, corruption in the conduct of election starts before, during, and even after the elections. Before, under the guise of campaigns, politicians will go down to various constituencies. In fact, right from the primaries. When a particular candidate is an aspirant to a public office, he has so many other aspirants to contend with. Maybe for one seat, you see more than 5, 6 or more candidates. So the emphasis has not been on articulating programs of action that a particular candidate can execute when he is in office. The emphasis these days has been on how much a candidate can pay to a delegate. That's right. In a situation whereby the primaries are run through delegates. Even in a situation where it is open primaries for various constituents who are members of that political party, candidates try to outwit each other, not by the kind of program of action they want to implement. So from the pre-election, during the primaries, corruption is endemic. On the day of election, corruption is endemic. We have seen, like you rightly mentioned, during the Ekiti election, civil servants were getting alerts. It was shown widely, and people saw that these monies were coming from state government accounts. That is on the eve of the election, or even election days. Food vendors that sit to sell foods are given monies. You go there as if you are buying food, they give you money in an envelope, or they just give you money. Then even after the elections, to make sure that they retain the support of people that are supporting them, they still give money. So the process of corruption in election financing or in the electoral process is even before, during, and after. And that is why the EFCC has taken proactive measures. Before now, maybe it used to happen, but it was not that pronounced. But since the dispensation of this current democracy, it has become too endemic. So what EFCC has done right now, like my colleague, my learned friend, Wahab Shitu rightly mentioned, trying to go ahead of the money bags, we have fall back on MLS, mutual legal assistance, memorandum of understandings signed with nations where corrupt politicians stash money away.
Even before we get to what EFCC is doing or the mechanism you're using to track, I also like you, just as Kingsley has asked, you said the corruption has a process.
Yes.
And within that process, what exactly are you investigating? Because there must be a template.
Yes.
Yes. So what template are you investigating?
Like we have explained, both speakers have explained, when you induce voters to vote not according to their conscience, but maybe because of the quantum of money or because of the financial inducement that
are you investigating?
We are investigating financial
Are you
crimes.
investigating the visible aspects of corruption, the ones that you can see? Because there are also the aspects that you cannot really investigate. So are there templates or sources, where you expect that these funds should come, and then these are templates for investigation? It's okay, this source has been breached, this has been breached.
Well, the template, if I follow your question very well, is both preventive and we try, when you track a candidate, maybe bringing in money that is unusual before election into the country, you know that the man is out to corrupt the electorate. So what you do is, as a preventive measure, you try to trace, freeze, and if possible, confiscate the account if it is linked to a crime. For instance, most of these politically exposed persons, they stash their resources outside. Some of them use their monies, buy properties, either Dubai, in the UK, in America, by way of money laundering, stash those properties there. Once it is time for election, they dispose of those assets. If it is cash in the bank, they try to transfer it back home. So what we try to do is to be proactive by trying to prevent those resources from even coming here. But in the event they come and the culprits or the people that are indulged in it are seen or arrested, we track the money.
I don't know if Kingsley has my question.
No, well, yeah, I thought he was. Yeah, I got a question. Okay. But when we're talking about, if you like, tracking sources of illicit funds. But that's the point that we can pursue later. But I just want Sabo, to also come in here, dealing with the cost centers in corrupting corrupting the electoral process by way of election financing. How easy is it, to identify those instances and then deal with the culprits? As Tahir rightly said, you have the three-stage process. Before, usually the primaries, and we heard a lot of stories in the primaries of the various political parties just last year, then election proper, and after the election, what are those things that people should be watching out for, so that assuming there is a potential whistleblower, the whistleblower can then come up to assist the anti-graft agencies?
Yeah, thank God there's the social media now. A lot of what happens behind, let me say, closed doors gets to the knowledge of a lot of people. Some of the whistleblowing, to use your expression, some of the whistleblowing instances had happened because of the social media. Mr. Tahir had also mentioned that in the during the Ekiti saga, there were videos and audio recordings that had been passed around for people to see, especially when those instances had to do with money that had moved between government and individuals. Now, in the course of an election, before, during, and after, the instances where matters become subject to investigations are, for example, now one is where he said when illicit funds come. But you have to know that those funds are illicit
In the first instance, that's right.
to start with. Now, it is their job as investigators to find out. And I believe, I'm not an investigator in their own system, but I believe they have a list of suspects, people that are known to have, done corrupt things. Let me just put it generally like that, like stolen money or embezzled money or whatever. Now, we all know that they use these outside places as stash points. Now, I believe that in one of the, or some of the laws in this country, EFCC, NDLEA, and so on laws, you have instances where you might have to account for monies that are not commensurate with either your income or with what is believed is your strength, financial strength. You find a candidate who is probably a government employee. He has been a government employee for the past maybe 15, 20 years. If you compute his entire salaries, his entire allowances and so on, they do not amount to half of what he is bringing up to say, I'm going to campaign for elections. And he cannot explain how he got that money. Now, if he is on their list, they will trace or they will track how he got these monies. How did you get these monies? I got them from my friend in America. They investigate, there's no friend in America. They found that he had a property there he sold. How did you buy that property? And he can't explain it. Now that becomes, a suspicious transaction.
Yes.
In such a way that it now becomes subject to their investigation. And if they find it, the law enables them, it empowers them to stop that kind of thing, to prevent it by either arresting the money itself or arresting the person and whatever. Now, that is one aspect of it. Another aspect where corruption comes into play in elections is vote buying. A lot has been said about vote buying and vote selling. And there's a section of the law that had criminalized that kind of conduct. You have a situation where, let me give you an example. Let's say my mother in the village. My mother in the village wants to vote Party A. That is the party of her choice, or the candidate standing on that party platform. And she wakes up in the morning, she wants to go and vote. Somewhere along the road, somebody stops her and says, Mama, say yes, we want you to vote for Party B. Says, why? It's a woman that is suffering, from the effects of poverty, for example. She doesn't have, she's just trying to keep body and soul together. And he says, here's 10,000 naira, vote for Party B. And because of the immediate benefit of it, she decides, what the hell, is just one vote. And she goes and she thumbprints and she throws it in. Now, these illicit funds that had come in are not the product of the sweat of that particular person. Right. It's something he stole, and he doesn't have any qualms, any feelings about how he expends it. He now exploits that criminality that he had done to further, devastate society. Because if, let me put it this way, I wouldn't want to say once a thief, always a thief, no. But I want to think that if I stole money and I used the money to put myself in office, I would continue stealing, So they are trying to prevent a situation where the society is corrupted by reason of such things.
Okay, Alhamdulillah Sabo, thank you very much. Let's return to Wahab Shitu in our Lagos network studios. Wahab Shitu, tell us something. Look, this is probably, again, a phenomenon that is new, because the general practice over the years had always been that, fine, governments in power use the power of incumbency or use the advantage of incumbency to leverage on their re-election. And those who are outsiders, of course, have to source for funds from a wide variety of sources, including illicit, some of them allegations, of course, relating to drugs and all of that. But is there a new thinking towards tackling corruption in election financing? Because some are arguing that this could be an earlier way of dealing with corrupt tendencies. If you arrest it at the root, then it might not grow into a giant oak. Are we getting it? Is the philosophy of tackling corruption in election financing something that is growing?
Thank you. I think there is no doubt about it that there's a new thinking now about the philosophy of tackling corruption with regards to election financing. Thanks to the new administration, thanks to President Buhari's approach, who has vowed not to touch state funds or utilize state funds for purposes of campaign. We saw what happened in the previous administration. Most of the corruption that trials that are going on today is a result of people dipping their hands into state coffers to fund and finance elections. I do not want to mention specifics or particulars, but you can see all the evidence around us. Most of the people who are on trial today are arising from the activities of what transpired in the previous administration. It has to do with a situation where funds belonging to the state are deployed, or funds earmarked for security are deployed to fund and finance elections. That is the corruption of the highest order. I'm happy that President Buhari has said, I will not dip my hands into state coffers, into federal coffers to fund my elections. You see, during elections, the expectation is political parties will source for funds within the limits permitted by law. Individuals too will source for funds within the limits or the threshold permitted by law. But a situation where you dip your hands into funds, state funds meant for development, meant to provide infrastructure, meant to provide housing for our people, and you use such funds, or funds that are earmarked for fighting the Boko Haram insurgency. When you dip your hands into such funds, you are not only corrupting the society, you are also funding the electoral process with the use of illicit funds. Illicit funds in the sense that these funds ordinarily were not meant to fund elections. But you have gone out of your way in abuse of your executive powers to dip your hands into these resources in order to fund the election. First, it creates undue advantage. Secondly, it is outright stealing of our collective commonwealth. This is what this administration has said will not happen. And this is why it is salutary. And for an incumbent president to say, I will not spend the resources of the state to fund my election is something that is commendable. That is why today, our president is recognized locally and internationally as someone who is not corrupt. He does not care whether because of that he will lose election. But he's setting a new template in terms of ethical standards that our electoral process must not be allowed to be corrupted by resources belonging to you and I. And this is why I say there's now a new thinking, there's now a new approach spearheaded by the Buhari administration to combat this element of corruption, particularly with respect to election financing.
All right, well, Wahab Shitu, thanks a lot. Very quickly, let's bring in Silvanus Tahi again. Oftentimes, in our thinking in the country when we're discussing issues, there's a tendency to federalize matters because the federal is very attractive. Now, at the state and local government levels, there are also funds. And there have been reports in the past of states, whose managers have deployed state resources for purposes of election financing, and of course, by definition, corruptly so. What is the focus on those other tiers of government?
Since the reawakening for the nation to cope the menace of vote buying and spending government monies on conduct of elections. The EFCC in particular, as a federal government agency, is not just limiting its efforts at the federal level. As it is now, most of these political exposed persons, either at the federal level, at the state level, local government levels, and even sponsors and financiers. Our eyes are widely open, tracking their finances. That's why, like Wahab Shitu mentioned, the chairman currently is out of the country. He has been traversing some countries within the West African sub-region and even beyond, where there are high flag creeks, where we have red flags, of where politically exposed persons have stashed resources. We are everywhere. And like I said, our eyes are not just kept on the federal alone, but mostly, we do generate intelligence, either through information that comes to us, through the FIUs, not just in Nigeria, all over the world.
I wanted to ask, sorry, is because the concept of tracking corruption in election financing, it's not new. Like Mr. Shitu said, and everyone here has said, the approach and the political will is what is the new thinking. Yes. Has INEC or EFCC been sleeping all the while? Because there is a statutory provision for violators.
No doubt there are replete laws that deals with issues like this. But, they say where laws cannot be enforced, it is as if it is none, as if none exists. So the laws have been there. It's just like the mandate of the EFCC that we are currently prosecuting. It's not something new. It has always been there in the statute books. Maybe some names that appear new, like cybercrime and I understand.
Have you just,
what I'm saying is, you see, the blame goes to maybe the traditional law enforcement agencies. We have the Nigerian police, particularly that is saddled with the responsibility of detecting, investigating, and even the prevention of crime. But before now, before the creation of EFCC, all these things were not there. Even in terms of prosecution, the Federal Ministry of Justice has not been up and doing. But when the President Olusegun Obasanjo established the EFCC and ICPC, a new reawakening started. And that's why with all the campaigns that have been done, the sensitization, the role of the civil society organization in raising alarms over this menace of illicit election financing, the reawakening has started. That's why EFCC has taken it upon itself to take the battle, not just to the doors of the federal operators, but states as well as local governments.
What measures are you using?
The measures we are using,
forensic?
It is all, it is everything at our disposal. We get intelligence. We have a financial intelligence unit. We have sister law enforcement agencies, like the MOU that the EFCC signed with the counterparts of the Economic and Organized Crime Commission in Ghana and some other parts of the world, like in Dubai. We have signed MOUs, mutual legal assistance, aimed at tracing assets. So once they see, their FIUs, that's financial intelligence units, monitor funds, movement of cash. So we share intelligence. By the time they give us information that dealing with suspicious transactions, we share information and we get things done, whether it affects federal, state, or local operators.
All right, Mr. Silvanus Tahi, let's pause you in the meantime, and indeed the other guests. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll take some of the tweets and then get back into the nitty-gritty of this conversation. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. So let's go quickly down to our tweets and take them. Mutana Farouk has this tweet. The electoral process in Nigeria has been grossly characterized by monetary inducement. It is crystal clear that the act of money politics is a punishable offense. The wrong perception about politics by the politicians is that politics is a business that yields swift returns.
All right, Dele Jack Solomon tweets, if we genuinely want to reduce opportunities for corruption and restore public trust in government, it's time to consider an anti-corruption measure that our heroes past would have favored. That's reducing the size and scope of government by enforcing constitutional limits on government power.
Law Alpha C. Now, we all know that politicians are now going around in view of the forthcoming general elections, and some of them are sharing money to potential voters. It will be mission impossible to check and punish corruption in election financing since it has become a norm and the people need the money.
All right, and Ife tweets, just set up an election panel to deal with it.
That should be an election offenses panel. I believe so. Mike Ayakwa says, tell ourselves the obvious truth. Corruption in election financing is here with us. All parties, with no exception, partake in this ugly act. Do you have any proof of that? Now, that's my question to him. Now, we can't tackle the menace overnight, but can reduce it drastically. to the barest minimum. The onus lies mainly on the electorate to nip the problem in the bud. We must vote with our conscience, knowing full well that good candidates matter a lot in all aspects of development. The issue of corruption in governance will be eliminated if we vote in people of goodwill.
All right, and Akejo Alagbaju tweets, the corruption of electoral process is continuous and widespread as long as we operate a system where we cannot separate public treasury from private accounts. Hopefully, as we move deeper in democratization, it will reduce.
Dele Jack Solomon tweets, now agencies routinely fail to enforce the anti-corruption rules that already exist due to partisan deadlock. And when they are able to act, they often lack the enforcement tools necessary to uphold the law. The result is an election system where even lax rules can be broken with impunity.
All right, and Sani Michael Omakoji tweets, first things first. He says, to fight corruption in the forthcoming elections, electoral umpire should show neutrality, and security managers are expected to shun social engineering. And in that sense, EFCC, INEC, and security agents can deal with politicians who indulge in inducement.
Othman, that tweets, wondering why our politicians are paying people just to gather them on their campaign grounds. Again, we have no proof of that. But if these people are paying to gain the crowd, what do you expect when it comes to election day?
All right, and this is Blessed Ima. He tweets, let there be no more open campaign, jumping from one community or state to the other. That will end the cash inducement we are seeing now.
Dele Jack Solomon says, with a political campaign finance system that is corrupt and increasingly controlled by billionaires and vested interests, I fear very much that, in fact, government of the people, by the people, and for the people is beginning to perish in Nigeria. We shouldn't allow this to happen. All right, those are the tweets that we have. I just wanted to return to Wahab Shitu in Lagos before we bring in again Sabo here with us in the Abuja studios. On the question of the focus of if you like, surveillance by the anti-graft agencies. We often hear that some governors are so powerful. We have seen them, of course, in the instance of the Fourth Republic, as to how governors literally handpick those who would contest elections and win elections as House of Assembly members, as councillors, council chairmen, and even in some cases members of the National Assembly. So the presumption in some quarters is that the plutocracy we find, particularly at the state level, could be the result of some underhand dealings with the financial system. Why is the surveillance, or what should the surveillance system be with regard to those tiers of government, local and state, that sometimes could be off the radar?
Thank you very much. I think the surveillance should be holistic. Holistic in the sense that it is not surveillance that is focused at the federal level alone. Like you rightly mentioned, the states and the local governments ought to also attract attention. What EFCC is doing in this regard is to open up more branches across the states. Under the Magu-led EFCC, do now have more branches of EFCC being opened up in several states to be able to effectively monitor the activities of state governments and local governments and some other people that might be interested in corrupting the process. And I think we should be very happy without an attempt to campaign for anybody. For the first time in the history of this country, we have a president who is acknowledged locally and internationally as not corrupt. We have a vice president who is also not corrupt. And then is able to, provide the requisite leadership. Because what is lacking in some of these instances is the issue of a leadership. Now, if the leadership is effective with the requisite political way, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, if a leadership that would know that it is voted in to serve and not to make the resources of the people, will not deploy state funds to finance elections, will not sustain the people because the leader, such a leader wants to win election at all cost. It does not matter the outcome of elections. What is important is for the choice of the people to be freely expressed in the election process, which is what is important. How do we ensure that this is done at the state level? I've mentioned the fact that more branches have been made. There is a lot of monitoring mechanism all over the place. Some time ago, I was talking to a frontline bank executive. He said, "Do I know what they mean by election?" I said, what is meant by election? He said, "Election is nothing but bank vote. If you have access to the vote of banks, you are likely to be able to win election." And it should not be. Really, election should not be about bank vote. That is why EFCC is also, focusing attention on financial institutions, monitoring their activities. Recently, the chairman of EFCC had a meeting with the chief compliance officers of all the banks. And they say, this is about our survival as a country. When you see suspicious transactions, it is your duty to report to the EFCC and other anti-graft agencies. And luckily, it is not only EFCC that is having effective and efficient leadership now. ICPC is now being led by Professor Bolaji Owasoye, who is also the former secretary of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. So you can see that not only is EFCC involved here, we also have a collaborative ICPC. So if the anti-graft agencies are able to collaborate effectively with INEC and other security agencies like the police, SSS, if they key in and collaborate, this phenomenon of corruption in our electoral process will be reduced to the barest minimum. And outside the country, if we intensify intelligence and sharing, and then we prosecute those who are found guilty of these offenses through treaty and bilateral arrangements, they can be prosecuted here and even outside. And luckily, this government is doing enough in terms of signing a lot of memorandum of understanding with local and foreign partners to ensure that this phenomenon of corruption, particularly as it affects our election financing, is stopped. Because most of the time, what you find out is that money stolen from public coffers are deployed by some of these corrupt politicians to pollute the process. If you genuinely want to serve, one must spend.
All right, Mr. Wahab Shitu, thank you. Again, let me bring in Mr. Stevanos Tahiri here. Now that EFCC has offices, monitoring, of course, the campaign and how, monies are spent. I'd like you to speak to the issue of the cappings. How are you monitoring the cappings, for presidential, governorship and all that? And what are you also reading about, in the present dispensation about election financing?
Okay, before I come to that, I'd just like to highlight more on what my colleague Wahab Shitu said. You see, in addition to establishing state offices, keeping an eye on the banks, like he rightly said, there were interface between the executive chairman and the chief compliance officers of banks, sensitizing them on the need to be responsible in their daily reportage of STRs. Another angle, that's suspicious transaction reports. They are under law. Banks are under law duty to make report to the EFCC where they see transactions that appear suspicious. In addition to that, the BDCs, that's Bureau de Change companies, play a vital role. If you are in Abuja, go to Zone 4. If you are in Kano, go to Wapa. If you are in Lagos, go to the international airport, domestic, and the rest. Go to Tinubu Square. All over the place, you see BDCs. And most of these politicians, because maybe they had stashed these monies and kept them at home in USD, Great British Pound Sterling, Euros, and the rest, they because of election, they are now bringing them out to convert to Naira. So those BDCs are being sensitized. We have held meetings, the chairman has held meetings severally with them, stressing the importance of them to also maintain their responsibility of reportage to the commission, because they are under duty, under the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011, to also report suspicious transactions. So these are some of the little efforts we do. We may not know everything, but we also invite whistleblowers to blow the whistle where there are instance of suspicious transaction.
So what's your reading now?
Now, to a large extent, if you look at the current electioneering campaign, even the electorates, the voters that have been used to be corrupted, are complaining. They say there's no money everywhere. Candidates whose source of funds are illicit are afraid to bring them in from maybe overseas, because all eyes are there. The FIUs of other countries, the financial sectors of those countries have reciprocal responsibility to report to us. The menace of this thing is to a large extent caught. Go to the street, like he said, I mean, what have she to say? In 2015, it was like a bazaar. Everywhere a candidate goes, be sure that bags of monies are dropped. Visitation to palaces of traditional rulers were supported with cash backing. But I doubt if it is the case wholesale as it is today. So as regards the capping, the law is there. But whether it is realistic as it is now to say a presidential candidate can spend only $1 billion, that's a moot point. Because I know for a fact that $1 billion, when you are talking of a presidential election, may not be enough. But as much as we can, we keep an eye on their finances. There's everybody's, I mean, all the candidates have accounts. We know from the press of the button, BVN, all related accounts will spring up. And we keep an eye. So once there are suspicious reports by the banks, we analyze it.
Do parties also comply with the 6-month provision to make reports of the expenditures and receipts?
That duty is to INEC. They are under a duty to report to INEC. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware if INEC has ever raised an alarm to EFCC or any other law enforcement agency to say that, look, from the reports or returns made by political parties, maybe there are infractions.
Okay, but Subhanu Sahib, thanks a lot. Let's bring in again Alhamdu Rufai Sabo. Well, what the EFCC is doing, shall we say, maybe they're dealing largely with the wholesale end of corruption in the election financing system. Is it possible to lower for the anti-graft agencies to lower their gaze and look at the retail end? Retail end being the see and buy. Will it be possible, to pick up a few persons, and then use them as examples for others? Because it is where crime or offenses go unpunished that there is incentive, for others to imitate those who had been scofflaws in the past. So can we look at the retail end of corruption in the election financing system?
We can look at the retail end. The system is skewed in favor of the offender. The laws are there, and in some instances the laws had always been there. You see, corruption, or the anti-corruption fight did not start with EFCC. No, it did not. I remember when several years ago when we were in school, in the Nigerian penal codes, there are provisions made to deal with embezzlement, to deal with all these fraudulent activities and so on. They have always been in the books. But just like any other law, if you cannot enforce it, it's just a decoration on a page. Now, I want to think that even as it is now, the EFCC is understaffed. I am not saying it for them, I just assume. And I think I'm right, because we have 36 states. And those 36 states have, I think, over 700 local governments, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if you put just three people to each local government, it's 700 times 3. And I'm not sure that the entire staffing of the EFCC is much more than that. Now, coming to deal with the retail end will require quite a number that might not be sustainable. Now, that is why the EFCC and many other agencies have to rely on this whistleblowing thing. Because you have a situation where a politician goes to a village and he gives everybody money. Most of villagers have never even heard of whistle blowing. None of them is ready to report because they are getting some benefit out of it, and so on and so forth. Now, all of these things, the cumulative total of it is that the agency can just do that much and stop. Now, the law is there. The law is there, and it provides for sanctions against the person giving the money and against the person receiving the money. I think it has a punishment of about 12 months imprisonment, or it was 100,000 naira fine, that kind of thing. But whether it's really enforceable is a different matter altogether. But the retail end is definitely a point that must be looked at. You see, when we talk of the corruption in the electoral system, we appear to have stopped at during the elections. Even after the elections, INEC officials, there have been instances where INEC officials, security agencies and so on had been compromised by money, either for ballot boxes to disappear, or for results to be changed, or for the security to be absent, and then there's commotion and there's some kind of thing, and ballot boxes are destroyed because the results apparently will not favor a candidate, and has paid for it. There's thuggery, and all kinds of things. All this amount to corruption, and they are actually at the retail end, not something that some top level, either an ex-government functionary or a politically exposed person will go around distributing money. So when you come down to the bottom and you find the people there, and there's nobody to enforce it there, like you said, it continues.
I'd just like to put you on hold. Our Lagos guest, of course, we just want to appreciate Mr. Wahab Shittu, who has joined us. Mr. Wahab Shittu, could you briefly, just before you go, could you tell us, say a few words just before you leave?
What I want to say is that we have the laws, like my colleague Tahir mentioned. The laws are there. I think what is required now is the will to enforce the laws. Corruption thrives when there are no consequences. If we bring people to book for corruptly financing the electoral process, if they go to jail for doing this phenomenon will be reduced. And so what we should be thinking of now is that we should put enough machinery in motion to ensure that our laws are enforced. And the electorate should know that whoever is trying to give them money to influence their voting pattern is a rogue, is a thief, and such a person is not deserving of their votes.
Shittu, thank you. Lecturer, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and leading EFCC prosecutor. Many thanks to you for joining us on this conversation. All right.
Yeah, I just want Silvanus Tahir to respond to the aspect of the retail end of corruption in election financing. Sabo has raised the other aspect. We have seen some instances of the conviction of INEC officials who were alleged before the trial to have received inducement to do whatever else. But so, is there loosely what one can refer to as a vice squad by the AFCC monitoring the security agencies who are out there on the field, as well as INEC officials, whether full-time staff or electoral officers who are on the beat, because that's one leg where corruption, could actually take place through a wide variety of mechanisms, either for them to be absent and then commotion occurs, or for the process to be compromised. What is EFCC looking at in this regard?
Well, basically, like I said before, our eyes is on everybody, everyone that is involved in the electoral process. Be you a candidate, a sponsor, a voter. Once there is an infraction and we have reports, our eyes are on everybody. We try to monitor everything.
All right, Silvanus Tahir, thank you. Let's quickly take our tweets before we round off.
Yes, okay.
All right, let's begin with Usman Ibrahim. He trades election financing limit in Nigeria as set by the law is unrealistic. Politicians always spend way above the limit. We've said this, and he says this is the reason politicians need to recoup.
Adekunle Olayemi tweets, now the only way we can tackle it, that's corruption and election financing, is to reduce money government is giving to all those who hold political posts and then allow EFCC to intervene in every political party to checkmate them.
And Duke Agano is merely advising the security agencies to be more preventive.
And Husseini Babame tweets, I think the best way to tackle corruption during election is for the police and the EFCC to be aware of what's going on election day.
Indeed, and Festus Akinpoewa says the only effective way we can tackle corruption in election campaign is to send perpetrators to prison for many years.
And Abubakar Shetima tweets, unless the electorate put an end to the tradition of collecting car keys, wrappers, salt, etc. from politicians, tackling corruption won't be realized.
All right, and Cecilia Okuruma tweets, can we have psychiatrists check the heads of those looters that steal billions and own hundreds of properties before prosecution?
Anusa Peter Oga tweets, electoral corruption has become pervasive because power brokers created poverty in the electorate, thereby making them weak in resisting financial inducement.
All right, thank you. Those are the tweets. We'd like to thank you, and we'd also like to thank our guests here in the studio. Let me begin with the Assistant Director, Legal, EFCC, Mr. Sevanus Tahiri. Thank you.
Thank
also, to appreciate Mr. Ahmadu Rufai Sabo, Legal Practitioner, who's joined us. Many thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's take a peep at the sports world. And Nigeria drops 2 spots in latest FIFA ranking. Nigeria under 20 stays optimistic ahead of Niger clash.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria dropped 2 spots from 44th to 46th and are ranked 4th in Africa following the latest FIFA World Rankings released on Thursday. 3-time African champions, the Super Eagles are behind the Teranga Lions of Senegal, the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia, and the Atlas Lions of Morocco in the ranking of African teams. The Ghana Ross team are tied in the same position with Montenegro in the world ranking. Nigeria's opponent in next month's Africa Cup of Nations qualifying fixture, Seychelles, are ranked 189th in the world. Egypt, who the Super Eagles will face in a friendly game also in March, are ranked 57th in the world and 8th in Africa. There are no changes in the top 5 countries in the world occupied by Belgium, France, Brazil, Croatia, and England. Meanwhile, Flying Eagles head coach Paul Aibugun insists the team will give their all to ensure they come out with a win in Friday's Group A clash against hosts Niger at the Africa Under-20 Cup of Nations. Aibugun's charges top the Group A table with 4 points from 2 games, a win and a draw against Burundi and the Amajita of South Africa. A draw will be enough for the 7-time champions to seal a spot in the semi-final of the competition and a place at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup in Poland coming up in May, irrespective of the result in the other group game between Burundi and South Africa. Aibugun is however adamant that his team will try to win the game.
All right, let's go over now to our foreign desk.
African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mohammed has applauded the progress made towards ratification of the African Continental Free Trade Area, describing it as particularly encouraging. The trade and industry portfolio at the AU is working towards securing the 22 ratifications required to effectively bring the African Continental Free Trade Area into force before the Heads of State Summit next week. The chairperson of the commission said he hopes that the 6 countries that have not yet signed the instrument will do so in shortest possible time, and that those who have already taken this step will quickly conclude the ratification procedures. This week, Ethiopia and Djibouti have become the latest nations to ratify the deal that seeks to increase intra-African trade by 52% by the year 2022.
All right, if you haven't gotten your PVC, go get it. I hear today is the last day. And for our brothers and sisters in Islam, I wish you Jumat Mubarak. Join us again next week and do stay out of trouble. Bye-bye.
By the way, you recall when we were doing the newspaper review, there was a story about INEC reconsidering today's deadline, but there's no story confirming that yet. We do hope that the stories will roll out. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague in thanking you for being with us on the program today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend, and don't forget, the elections begin Saturday next week.
Imagine a station where you access information. Think of a station that creates awareness for national development. Imagine a station that prepares you for a bright and greater future. A station for all ages. Documentaries, classroom and television, events coverage, children's programs and variety shows. Always stay tuned to NTA Knowledge on the StarTimes platform, channel 359. For partnership, sponsorship and advert placements, contact us on NTA Knowledge. NTA Knowledge, learning to broaden horizon.
Yes, it be like say they want to tell us another story again, yo. Now so, you know, say people they say I'm the superstar, but for me, the real superstars are those people where they go vote for the candidate of their choice without violence. So for these upcoming elections, be my superstar. Vote. No fights, no violence, because election will be war. We work together so the future will be brighter.
Portego Isakwa Beje. I'm from Delta State Company. At that 2005, the company was privatized. Those that were working, that were caught up with the privatization, were laid off. No arrangement for the payment of anything. They were denied their pension rights. So in 2005 through 2017, we have been struggling how we can be put back on pension. We staged a lot of demonstrations under the rain, under the sun. The government did not listen. The marginalization for the past 13 good years by successive administration, the sufferings we'll be going through, the loss of human dignity and no hope for livelihood from July 31st, 2018. The monthly pensions start coming to the pensioners. We also want to be very, very thankful to President Muhammadu Buhari. He's God sent.
This is the network service of the NTA.
To be successful, use each day as an opportunity to improve yourself.
True that, AK. Trust the wait and embrace the uncertainty.
Indeed, Lolade, enjoy the beauty of becoming.
Because when nothing is certain, anything is possible.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Click Light, where we celebrate creativity and style. I am Ikemini Williams.
And I am Ololade Alayaki.
And together we're going to be making your 30 minutes
worth the while. First, the entertainment news.
It's a light at the end of the 7-month tunnel for Nigerian singer and songwriter Douglas Jack Agu, popularly known as Runtown, who has been involved in legal tussle with his embattled record label Eric Mani for a while now. In a judgment reportedly delivered by Justice O.A. Musa of the Federal High Court in Abuja, the restraining order placed on Runtown by his former record label from performing has been suspended, while in turn the record label has been restrained from interfering in the singer's affairs.
Never finish. I never thought the one way happen for her daughter. Some things say the boy he no go blow. I don't only blow.
You would recall Runtown got signed into Eric Mani label in 2014 after his success of his single Galado featuring Davido. Followed by some major singles like Lagos to Kampala featuring Wizkid, translating into recognition in Nigeria's Music Hall of Fame. However, things went south in 2018 between Runtown and his record label as accusations of threats to his life emerged, with Runtown declaring his intention to terminate his contract, leading to a lawsuit by the label. Which, however, has ended in Runtown's favor. So American pop singer Chris Brown has been released from police custody in Paris following his arrest on rape allegations and drug violations. Reports say the singer was given an unconditional release and allowed to leave the country because the prosecutors see holes in the case. The singer's attorney, however, said Chris is protesting his innocence and will sue his accuser.
Cause I'm undecided. No, baby.
And that's it on entertainment news. You could follow us on Twitter at ClickLight on NTA.
Just like in boxing, it's the survival of the fittest relative to the case of Runtown.
Indeed, Lalade. You know, back then in 2015, 2016, most people thought that he was a Ghanaian.
I thought the same too.
Yeah, I did, but I had to check him out. And then I realized he's a Niger boy from Enugu State. He's been doing really well with his singles, Lagos to Kampala,
Mad Over You.
He was really dope, like, trust me. And then with this turmoil that he's been passing through, he, according to him, has been passing through this, troublesome moment with his record label, from threats to his life. Imagine that you're involved with maybe some record label that pulls a gun at you.
No, that's really crazy, and I don't think it should get to that extent where we start threatening ourselves over music and stuff like that. So I really hope everyone moves on and focus on producing amazing music for Nigerians.
True that, Dolade. I'm moving on. Some people are born to be musicians, while others have simply learned the art. Some others simply learn the arts to make a mark in the society. People with this ability can easily be spotted with music oozing from their pores. Let's meet him on the Artist Zone.
Afrobeat artist Oluwaseyi Agbanigo, aka Indobaba from Ekiti State, is quite a sensation when it comes to the Nigerian rhythm.
The first day I saw her, she said,
Based in the US, Indobaba is moving swiftly with his music in the diaspora. stamping his presence recently with the Yucata in London, Dublin and North Ireland. The Afrobeat crooner, who has been noted for his energetic performance and vocal skill, has won several awards which include Best Afrobeat Artist at the recent Inspired Africa Award. Mr. Jollof, as some of his fans also call him, has worked with a number of American top arts. I have in the studios with me the artist named Indo Baba, right?
Yeah.
And curiosity, what does Indo mean?
Wow. That's been a lot of questions for years though. But Ahendio means, it's like I get it from a Turkish name. It means power within you, not the physical strength. But a lot of meaning attached to it, like you understand, like people put some kind of weird names on it. The Indonesia people call it like an elephant. Like, it's a pride there too, like how strong it is and something like that. But that's where I derived mine from. And that was caused by a song that I was trying to, like, lyrics that I was trying to write then. Then it's what fits in. Then that's how I established the name.
Did you do a lot of research before you started using the name?
Yeah, because when I'm writing music, right, I read dictionaries, I read novels. I just want to inculcate some things that you have to ask me, like, what's that?
Okay, and that's interesting. And then I'm asking you already, what's in there? Okay, now what you do Afrobeat, you do R&B. What inspires your fusion of music?
My fusion of music inspires me in the kind of way that I stick to the society and I blend with what people need from me, and I stick original as a Nigerian.
You've released about 4 singles. How many singles so far?
Yeah, 4 so far, official.
4 official singles.
Yeah.
Now, each of them has a story to tell. What are the essential things you add?
Number one, I don't follow trend like what everybody's doing, because if you see right now, everybody's doing like low tempo song, just grooving, in which they Nigerians turning Ghanaians. Sorry to say that, but it's all African music. But the main thing is that I follow my spirit, because I'm the kind of person that I can record 700 songs in a week.
Are you kidding me? 700 songs?
I'm just kind of saying, if there's 700 beats and I have 700 times, I'm going to record different songs on it and different lyrics. Nothing's going to look similar. So that's my inspiration, is just based on my mood.
Okay, so it comes naturally to you.
Naturally.
Now, so you've been in the music scene for at least
like 10 years now.
10 years. Now, when did you discover you could sing?
I only first discovered that I can write.
Okay, first of all, a writer.
Yeah, because I was singing, but to me it feels horrible. I think like, am I good in this thing? But when I write, because I start with my cousin's gonna like read my lyrics, gonna be like, how do you write this thing? I said, I just wrote, but I don't have the reading. So he's gonna like, yeah, just sing it the way you like. So you're gonna take it like that. But later I started developing more, like, you understand, know about pitch and other things that is helping me more in music.
I saw one of your performances and I could see the energy, vibrating through.
Yeah.
Now, is that one of your ingredients for a good performance on stage?
Yeah, like when you're called an artist, it's an art. So it's like drawing things. People want to see something that is gonna wow. I see people want to see something that is gonna make you like depressed, or you understand. It's what you give to them. 8
years in the music industry over there.
Yeah.
And then how do you intend to integrate? Not forgetting that the likes of Dubanj and Don Jazzy were over there. Until they came to Nigeria, that was when we started feeling the rhythm of the music. Now, how do you intend to integrate into the Nigerian music scene?
People say that a lot. That's been the story for years. Even the first year, people know that I'm a musician in America, right? They always tell like, go back home, go back home. I was like, do we need to go back home? What about the diaspora? Because, we have Spanish radio, we have Jamaican radio. I feel like we should have African radio, so we here too can, because the population is big.
Are you doing anything towards that?
I'm doing a lot towards that. That's why I inculcated a lot of concerts of like records, having a show. I hope for it, just to spread the music, and they love it.
A few weeks into 2017, and now, a few weeks back, you just released another new single, Rosa. Can we hear a little bit of it? Let me understand what you're meaning. Are you talking to a lady?
Like I said earlier, I said the way I always like my song, like people always like, what do you think about it? Like the the song I released before this song was Holiday. I was like, one shot for the guys, two shots for the girls. It's a holiday, holiday. So like, all the things to that thing, I was like, that's where the inspiration comes from. It's what comes, you're gonna put down. It's just like a man trying to put on a book. It's what he sees. It's gonna write down. So you know.
So
like,
what did you see in Rosa?
Rosa, I see Rosa in Row, Row, Row. That's the thing that brought the song. That's so funny. Because I was driving on the street, like I was like, I don't know what just like row, row, like maybe the thing like the song they sing in primary school, row, row, row,
Row
yeah,
your
boy.
boat. Okay. So how is the acceptance so far?
Yeah, in Nigeria so far, all the way from the airport till now, it's just great.
Now, 2017 on the old, what are we expecting from Indie Baba?
It's gonna be fire to fire though, because I haven't started, like I always say, because my stopping point is my starting point. Like right now, with things I've seen now, it makes me feel like I have more to give. And the more to give in this 2017, that's why I made the first thing to come to my home country, to come and show the love, to come and spend the first time in the country with my music. And it's gonna be on and on. Like, I know a lot of people gonna watch this interview, but when they watch the next one, they're not gonna say the same thing.
You're not going to say the same thing?
And I'm telling you, it's gonna be like a shot, mile shot down.
All right, interesting. It's been nice talking with you. Let's always represent Nigeria. Let's always represent our culture. That's what we stand for.
Nasu.
Exactly. So thank you guys. See you on the other side. The Make the News will deliver it to you on the platter with a difference.
The world of arts and entertainment, an endless path to opportunities.
From the motion pictures, music, fashion, comedy, visual arts, personality, and lifestyle.
Experience the glitz and glamour. The total package on the program where we celebrate creativity and style.
Music, they say, is food for the soul, and it's amazing when young talents come out every day to produce music to entertain Nigerians. We're rooting for you, and we hope to hear from you soon. Moving on from music to movies, the Screen Actors Guild Award, which recently only added to what has proven to be an unpredictable award season in Hollywood, Serafina Okon brings events' most memorable moments.
The nominees are...
Well, the 25th annual ceremony of Screen Actors Guild Awards 2019, as always, highlights performances across film and television series.
Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody.
This year was a mix of sorts, with Rami Malek recognized for playing the iconic Queen frontman.
This just seems extraordinary to me when I look at those actors I am nominated with, truly. I just never in my wildest dreams thought I could be in a category with these men, and I'm so proud to be one of your peers and to celebrate my peers tonight and to be celebrated by them.
For outstanding performance by a female actor in a leading role, Glenn Close.
Emily Blunt won the award for Best Female Actor in Supporting Role in the Motion Picture section of the awards for her role in the horror film A Quiet Place, beating Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz, whose performances in The Favourite have caused significant Oscar buzz.
Thank you to my whole team. 10 seconds. Chris Andrews, David Webber, Scott Womack, Bibi Lerner, Molly Kawachi, Roger Charters. That's it. I think that's it. Thank you, SAG. I'm so honored. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
One of the most powerful things that we have as human beings are two eyes looking into two eyes. And film is the only art form that allows us the close-up.
Amazon's comedy, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, walked away with a leading 3 awards, including Best Actress and Best Actor. Black Panther took home the top award for Best Performance by a cast in the motion picture at the 2019 Screen Actors Guild's Award.
We went to work with every day because we knew not that we would be around during award season or that it would make $1 billion, but we knew that we had something special that we wanted to give the world, that we could be full human beings in the roles that we were playing.
As expected, Hollywood biggest names turned out for the silver carpet, including Giman Chen, Amy Adams, and Lady Gaga, among others, all making a statement. The 25th Annual SAG Awards was not without diamonds and pearls as fashion embellishments for most stars.
Wow, looks pretty groovy for me if you ask me, Lolade, like from the red carpets, the panache. It looks like something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And then Black Panther, Black Panther.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever.
Like, I'm really happy and excited. It bagged lots of awards.
You know what they say about Black is beautiful.
Black is beautiful, baby.
So because there were so many Black people in that movie, it has been gaining a lot of recognition and awards across the globe. So Black people, I love you.
We love you.
Oh, I'm Black too, so... We're moving ahead for 10 years now. Tourism has experienced continuous growth, deepening diversification to become one of the fastest growing drivers of the economy in the world. In recent years, the Nigerian creative industry has thrived, boosting development in the country. In this package, Abdul Malik Adio takes us through tourism with emphasis on the cultural subsector.
Different expression of Nigerians' diversity. A country with diverse ethnic groups all blending into an awesome entity. Invariably, the cultural undertone has different perception on music, fashion, and artworks. This uniqueness has made Nigerian entertainment scene a force to reckon with and a means of attracting tourists from all over the world.
We are from Indonesia. We love Nigeria.
From Afrobeat to highlife, juju and waka, Nigerian sounds are peculiar with an infusion of rhythms giving credence to the contemporary artist of repute. Consequently, this attraction bears a magnetic force on platforms like the Calabar Carnival, an annual collaboration which hosts tourists annually on a large scale.
And everybody, there are different countries are getting to know a lot more about Nigeria. The value of any event is in the ability of that event to deliver on the end results. And this creative industry, is so huge that you can feel, the benefit to the community. Hotels are booked full, during the Power Week, as we call it. And above all, people go releasing good hormones.
The mix undoubtedly grows in appeal with the allure of timeless art piece, which reflects the true Nigerian spirit. With the likes of Uche Okeke, Abayomi Baba, Yusuf Grillo, and Tola Wewe, to mention a few, Nigeria has splashed colors of remembrance and uniqueness on the global audience.
What we really have going for us in Nigeria today is the creative industry. All the artists performing music, drama, Nollywood, visual, these are the Nigerians that are really giving us good images.
Like the art scene, the burgeoning fashion industry is receiving the desired buzz, with a host of Nigerian fashion designers winning accolades for their exemplary works in integrating Nigerians' local cultural attires as a masterpiece for export. However, there is a constant worry which borders on infrastructure and sustainability as a major barrier to the development of tourism. But the good news is that the Nigerian government and relevant key players are putting measures to surmount these bottlenecks to fuel the tourism industry as a flourishing trade and a haven for tourists and investors.
Abdulmalik on point with that package. The tourism industry in Nigeria is becoming an emerging industry, with the government partnering with other stakeholders.
True that, Lolade. You know, I feel that our festivals is a major attraction for foreigners, like right now. Although we have like tourist sites where people could go to, like the Gurara Falls, the
Ranch Shrine,
in Cross River, Northern Cross River, Obudu Cattle Ranch, you know. But I think it still needs to be developed up to the point where, just like Dubai, it's like one of the main places, the hotspots for tourism right now. So I think there are things that can be put on ground to really attract people to some of those tourist sites in Nigeria.
I think if they do that, Nigeria will also become the next Dubai.
Indeed, I believe that. All right, lead us to the next spot.
Like the music blaring in the background, the year 2018 recorded another milestone in the entertainment industry, with Wizkid's sold-out concert at the O2 Arena with over 20,000 capacity auditorium. Fast forward to 2019. Davido stormed the same arena with his name carved in gold. Let's see the highlights.
It has been a surge of emotions for Nigeria's David Adeleke, popularly known as Davido, as the memories of his show before and after at the O2 Arena, London, continue to trend on social media. Selling out the 20,000 capacity auditorium in London with his show is a feat he said he would accomplish, even when many were in doubt. However, that dream appeared to have become a reality, which is highlighting a vivid indication of his increasing dominance on the global scene. Surprise appearances from runway queen Naomi Campbell backstage and Hollywood legend Idris Elba, who made a guest appearance on stage. After the opening performance,